Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to Robocraft with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome to this update video for Full Spectrum Combat, the newest update and one of the largest to hit Robocraft in quite some time. There have been so many changes during this update, I can't really compress it into a single sentence, so let's just get started and start talking about a few of the additions which have been added in this update. One of the first, and possibly one of the most influential changes of this patch, is the removal of ranking when it comes to armor blocks. All armor blocks are now equal. No longer will you have Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, they are now all the same. This of course goes for rods, helium, and the carbon versions. So everything is unlocked as soon as you are entering the game. At level 1 you have access to all spectrums of blocks and they will not change as you level up, which is a pretty cool concept, honestly. If very weird for people who've been playing it for a while, this is a very foreign concept that's going to take a long time to get used to. As you can see by the new tech tree, things are a little bit more simple. You simply go along the spiral, upgrading as you go, and like I just said, the armor simply isn't there. So that's the first thing I would like to cover, in addition to the fact you now have new shapes, which are all being shown here in lovely 3D. Let's see their names. We have the edge slope, the corner slope, inner slope, cone, and pyramid. There's the pyramid, and the cone is being shown here. So a lot more freedom when it comes to shapes once you're building. Some of you may have already noticed, however, the windshield is absent from the chassis department, and that is because they are now found in cosmetics. The glass blocks are now only purchasable using Galaxy Cash. It bears mentioning though, before we carry on, the movement types and hardware types, essentially the functional cubes, still do have a form of ranking, although it's a little bit different than before. Rather than being Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, they now have names, and the intermediate ranks seem to have been removed. Whereas before we had Mark 1 and Mark 2 looking the same, then Mark 3 and Mark 4 also sharing the same model, now we only have the model differences, so we have much less in terms of upgrading them, but still all the different shapes are still here, so that's pretty darn nice. And this again goes for movement as well. If we have a look on the tech tree, as you can see, you still do upgrade them. So here's the next type of weapon, you carry on, so the weapons will upgrade as you level up. And now on to something a little bit fun in regards to just how you're going to customize the colouring of your bots now that all of the bots are made out of the exact same mark of armour. Well, you now have a paint gun, yes indeed, you now have the ability to completely paint your bot in a whole host of colours to suit your needs. Have you ever wanted a bright baby blue robot? Well, now you can have it. And honestly for me, the biggest change with this is that I can finally have red shields. I have wanted red shields since the very dawn of Robocraft, and now I can finally have them. This is pretty darn awesome, honestly. For people who like making art bots or are just completely building mad, this is a godsend, so I am really happy to see this in the game. Although some of the colours are a little bit bright, it must be said. There are no darker tones or anything of most of the colours. As you can see, there is 2 different shades of blue and such, but most of them you only get one version of the colour, and sometimes it can be a little bit garish, but for the most part they are very pretty indeed. Now one thing should be mentioned about these, you have these here, the starter colours. Now that's what you have if you are a non-premium member. If you purchase premium, you will get access to the full spectrum. But this isn't as bad as it sounds. If you purchase 1 day of premium and then paint your bot, that paint will stay if you simply become a non-premium member once again. So you don't need months upon months just to keep your bot looking pretty and shiny. You can simply get it for 1 day, paint up all your bots in a mad paint frenzy, and then simply go back to being a free user. Two quick changes to cover, however, before we leave the Bay Area, one of them being quite minor, and one of them being quite major, and actually a huge game changer, so naturally, we're going to have that one second. The first change comes in the form of the gun you can see in front of you, the new block placement system. Rather than simply holding the block in your hands, you can now see it in a little hologram on this gun, and actually see how many blocks you have left in your inventory. Now that is actually really useful, so I'm glad they finally added that. I've been wanting that for quite some time. The amount of times I have been building and then suddenly out of nowhere ran out of blocks is astounding, so I'm glad they finally did something about that. The second change, some of you may have already noticed, but this bot doesn't actually have a pilot seat, and the reason is the pilot seats have now been completely removed. And in its place, now, in a battle, you get killed once you go down to 25% health. This is of course based on how much CPU you have left, so if you have a maximum CPU of 1000 and you go down to 250, your bot will be destroyed. So that's a weird new system, once again, a very game-changing change, which we're all going to have to get used to in the future. Now this comes to a bit of a shock for me. I was expecting the replacement in some way of the pilot seat, but I wasn't expecting a complete removal, although I think that's my fault for simply not paying attention to forum posts and tweets quite enough. The next major change will probably get a lot of people very happy, and that's that bays no longer cost Galaxy Cash. Instead, you can simply keep adding them for free up until 25, which is the new maximum. You cannot go over that amount by any means, even if you were to try and pay. There is simply no option to do so. If before this patch you already had more than 25 bays, then don't worry, your bots will still remain and so will your bays. You simply can't add additional ones until you remove bots, which then go under 25 bays total. If you have purchased bays in the past, you will be getting a refund of Galaxy Cash as well, so no worries there. I personally have actually removed several bots already just to ensure that I can still get bots from the community factory without any issues, which brings me on to my next point. In the Robo Factory, you can now purchase bots using RP, and this of course means you will permanently own them. This is quite a significant change in the way that people are going to get RP from the store, and of course how you're going to get bots yourself. So for instance, if I wanted this little bot here, I could just go on buy, and it is now mine for the cost of RP, not Galaxy Cash. So I have spent no real money, and I now have the bot in my little bag collection permanently and forever. However, I'm not actually allowed to publish this back into the store, and that's how FreeJam is protecting against plagiarism. You cannot simply put a bot into the store unless you've built it from scratch in a new bay. If it counts as a bay which you've purchased from the store already, then you simply can't use it for uploading. This leads to a little bit of weirdness, honestly, in terms of the RP and Galaxy Cash model with the factory. Although on face value it is incredibly good in every single way, you no longer have to pay Galaxy Cash to purchase the bot, the problem is the renting system is no longer in existence, and if a bot is using a Galaxy Cash only item, for instance a cosmetic like this flag here, I have no option but to purchase it with Galaxy Cash. I can't simply try it before buying it because renting with RP is no longer in existence, which will put people off using cosmetics in their builds when they're uploading into the factory, which I'm sure people will get used to over time, but it is something to consider. For the next change, I've had to very briefly jump into a single player battle so that we can start taking some damage and indeed dealing some. In the bottom left you can see a 10-second timer constantly counting down to 0 whenever I'm not firing or taking damage or dealing damage. If I take damage, deal damage or fire a weapon, this will reset and start again at 10. Once it hits 0, your bot will start to automatically heal itself. This will happen in all game modes and is best shown off in single player, where I can hide for an extended period of time. There we are, now healed, back to full health. Although this is a little bit slower than being healed by a medic, it is certainly fantastic for people who want to go into battle alone, want to fight on the outskirts, or simply want to be incredibly sneaky. The auto health regeneration, it's called apparently. I've just checked the patch notes. The last major change, once again probably making a lot of people very happy, is that bots are no longer locked to Team Deathmatch until maximum ranking. You can now go into Battle Arena and the Pit at your heart's content using any ranking of bot. So even the tiniest little Diddy starter bot can indeed go into the Pit and be absolutely annihilated. And with this, matchmaking has been reportedly improved. If I can just quote the patch notes for a second. They now use robot ranking and skill-based matchmaking to match robots more fairly. So there we have it. Everything should be a little bit more fair now in matchmaking, so you're only fighting people who are actually of your level, which is lovely. Of course, this has been promised in the past, and they are slowly getting better at making it a little bit more refined. It is a bit of a trial and error process. And with that as well, the maps have now been reworked to accompany this. So maps are also now a little bit fairer, so as you're going into all the old maps you'll probably see a fair few changes. I can't show you right now because the servers only just came up and they're a little bit glitchy and I can't actually get into a match. I will of course be showing them off the next time I do a Robocraft video, but for now you'll simply have to take my word for it. All the other changes really are just on the technical side of things like the rail cooldown has been decreased, plasma cooldown I think has been increased by 20%, lots of stuff like that. Don't quote me on either of those two, they're just what I remember seeing. Once again, if you want to read about any of those, the full patch notes will be in the description below. The last thing that I do want to briefly mention is that the game has finally been upgraded to Unity 5, meaning that it now has multi-core support along with a whole host of performance increases, which means not only is the new maximum FPS 240 up from 60, even lower end computers should have a much easier time playing the game. So if you've ever had issues with FPS loss or just simple lag, perhaps it might be a bit better for you. And with that, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, then of course likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that Robocraft is a series you wish to see continued in the future. If I have missed anything or got something incorrect, I will endeavour to put it in the description below, so please feel free to read there before you post any comments about me balking up. I always seem to mess something up in these videos, so this will probably be no exception. So once again, thank you for watching, I hope I've helped, and goodbye.